States win is Nigeria's win. Now, following President Tinubu's announcement that the government intends to clear 3.3 trillion naira of legacy debt from the power sector, the Minister of Power, Adelabu, is back in the news. Now, against the backdrop of the rumors about his resignation and his governorship ambition, a video of Adelabu speaking to individuals, likely political elders in Oyo State, has surfaced. Adelabu, who was speaking in Yoruba, said that he was satisfied with what he had done up until this point. But more importantly, he also spoke about how he used to fix people into power in his role at the federal government level. Take a look.
àti àwọn tó tún so wáká tó tẹ̀lé wọn bá tá lè ṣe gbàtà dé federal àwọn tá lè fi sí ibì kọ̀ọ̀kan a kún fi wọ́n sí àtúndákẹ́.
All right, well, several interpretations of that. People are reacting to him saying he's satisfied with his time in office, number one, to him saying that, with the bit of influence they had, they've placed some people here and there, the federal level,
Okay, I love the play on words that you used to describe this when he said you place people in power. So maybe when they gave him the brief on a lighter note, they didn't quite describe what they meant by managing power.
Ministry
it wasn't
power.
for people. It wasn't to put people in power. It was power generation in Nigeria. So thank you for that play on words. But I think very seriously, I don't know if he intended for this video to be out, because I don't think he would have made statements like this, because it goes contrary to the apology that he made to Nigerians a little shy of 2 weeks ago, where he took ownership for the deplorable condition of the power sector in Nigeria and said that things would be fixed. 2 weeks deadline, by the way, is almost up. I don't think he would admit, and if you look at the analysis, the data, that he can be satisfied with his time in office. In fact, it's been said to be one of the reasons why he stepped back a little and not been very vocal about his ambitions of being governor in Oyo State. We've had under his watch multiple grid collapses. We have seen talks about Gencos. There's still that controversy around Gencos, the debt legacy of Gencos, even though it was inherited by this administration. But some might also describe it as not a very proper way of managing the situation. We have seen people in darkness for a very long time, and I believe that Nigerians would not agree that he ought to be satisfied with his time in office. I also want to ask around the policy coordination office that the president put in place at the beginning of his tenure, saying that they were going to track the progress of ministers, and that ministers who didn't perform would be excused. I want to understand the metric that is being used for that particular assessment, because a number of people would assess some of these key ministers and say they haven't done well, because again, being satisfied, your KPI would determine how satisfied you are about your time in office. Has he met his key performance indices? It doesn't mean that the president is satisfied with what he has done with the power ministry. His employer, is he satisfied? And so these are the questions you would ask. The second aspect of this is that also questions have been raised around nepotism or his claim, because to be fair, Vimba, he has spoken the heart of a number of people who are in power, that they feel that their biggest achievement is that they were able to bring their people from their community into office. That's the truth. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. In fact, Foundation for Investigative Journalism, in the analysis, which I love, actually highlighted Section 19 of the ICPC Act, which stipulates that any public officer who use as his office or position to gratify or confer any corrupt or unfair advantage upon himself or any relation or associate can spend up to 5 years imprisonment. Would we raise this as well? I don't even know if many Nigerians know about this, because it seems like the norm. Just get my person in there so that I can, find somewhere to get a contract, get positions and get things like that. And so for him to actually highlight that as an achievement is quite interesting. And so I'm hopeful that he would explain that particular statement he's made in line with Section 19 of the ICPC Act and see just how fair he has been in awarding contracts, in putting people into positions of authority. But on the statement around whether or not he's going to run for governor, this show means that he doesn't seem to have taken his 2 legs out of the race. And so the question again is whether or not that resignation letter was put in, even though his spokesperson denied that allegation. But at the end of it all, the people who are the real judge of whether or not he's done well in office, whether or not he should run for election based on his performance performance in certain areas of responsibility are the people of Nigeria and people who would get the ballot to vote for him at the end of the day.
And then there were some journalists, sorry, Dr. Abati, before I come to you, there was some investigation around that section of the Constitution regarding having to recuse yourself from appointment. And they say the Constitution actually says it's before primaries, not necessarily that there's a deadline, a specific deadline given in there. So just putting it out there that it's still possible that some may still resign outside of that deadline that was issued and may still be in their constitutional rights.
Yes. But it was because the president gave a directive. So there's also the presidential directive away from what the Constitution
says. Yes.
You see, there are some laws, some regulations in this country that will fall under the category of dead laws. That's a law that was of no effect because the people, either for cultural reasons or by convention, do not respect those laws. And that's why we often say that the true test of a law is in its implementation. Just like bigamy, for example, is a dead law in Nigeria because it's not been fully tested. Now, in this particular case, this nepotism has been there. It's one of the reasons why we had the first school in this country. People always favoring people from their own areas. What we do not understand is the shamelessness of a man who had once served as a deputy governor of Central Bank, who has also been appointed as a minister of the Federal Republic, to come and tell his people, because if you look at it contextually, these are his own local people, that he's been able to put many of his people in positions of power. That's a confession of nepotism. But it doesn't matter because they all do it. Yeah. So if you are in power, anybody from your village, they all want to benefit. They want to, those who are not looking for positions within government, for placements, their wives we put to bed, they will phone you and say, my brother, your wife has given birth. You will be wondering. You know, a man who had 9 months to prepare, you say your wife and you'll be wondering. So that's the kind of environment that we have. And that's why we often say also that the followership is part of the problem in Nigeria. Yeah. Because if people in positions of influence or power or in office, if they calculate the pressure that they receive from people around them, you will be shocked. Yes. Yeah. If you all had the chance now to go and visit maybe the president that is in town, you will go there, you greet him very well, and you will expect something on your way out.
Oh, just a prayer.
That's how Nigeria works. So that's how Nigeria works. So the pressure is heavy. Yeah. However, the problem with the minister is that when we call him to account, we expect him to say what he has done with the provision of regular electricity in Nigeria. He promised 2 weeks ago that there will be gas supply and that electricity will begin to enjoy it. Okay, where is that gas supply now? That's the kind of thing you should come and tell us. And then what kind of framework has he put in place? We have said on this table that there's a need to review the framework for energy, for the energy industry and for electricity delivery. What has he done about that? But he sits in his village, he tells them that I've been able to put many of your children in places and that even if he doesn't do anything again in life, alhamdulillah, he had to put God's name into it.
Because Nigerians love, because that's also a trigger for Nigerians' religion. The moment you mention God, everybody, they know, the politicians know how to push the buttons of the people. What makes them happy?
They sure do. Well, there you have it. Your Minister of Power is satisfied with his time in office.
Well, we are not satisfied.
We sure are not. We sure are not. We're still waiting for stable power supply.